Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast, the podcast with four different flavors coming from four different gamers. I am your host, Nick Irwin, and I want to welcome my co-hosts, Shane Eisterhold, Patrick Smith, and Russell Rowe. Hey, Patrick, where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastes.different.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff.
What's on the menu for dessert? We break out the 3D Doritos and squeeze the squeezits with nostalgic video games. In this episode, we're talking about retro games, old games, games that we remember and games that we enjoy, as well as those games nowadays that are worth quite a lot of money. Some that are mediocre, that are worth a lot, and those that are rare and worth quite a bit of money. And maybe even some that we probably owned as kids that nowadays we wish we still had because they are worth a lot of money. I remember for myself as a kid, I had, a lot of the games that are sought after, that are really rare for Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 and all those different consoles I used to own as a kid. And now I'm trying to get those games back personally in my collection of video games. And, I wish I would have kept them, but it is what it is. When you're a kid, you don't think about that stuff. You just think, I'll just get rid of it. I'm going to get the next thing. Who cares? But as you get older, you get nostalgic for that stuff, and you want to start playing those games again. So first, I want to send it over to you guys to see, just a general feel of what games for you in your childhood and growing up was nostalgic for you. What games did you feel that you wish you could play again, or that you have purchased again, possibly, that you do play a lot or that you do spend time with? And we'll start there, and then we'll kind of start going into the more rare and expensive games. So, Pat, I'll go ahead and send it off to you first. What's the games that you remember playing as a kid and that you wish you could still play today, or the ones that maybe you still play?
I grew up, I played a lot of Nintendo and stuff like that when I was a younger kid, but what I remember mostly playing a lot of is like the Sega series type stuff. I had Sega CD type when I was a kid, and I played a lot of that with my dad, so that's kind of more nostalgia for me. I remember playing trade-off with my dad where we would play like Sega CD games, or he'd come sit in the room and we would just play games, and he'd play for a little while and then I'd play for a little while. So those are nostalgia for me. Like I said, the Sega CD games and stuff like that. When I was younger, it was always Nintendo, but when I was that young, my dad was in the military. My Nintendo would disappear when my dad went on guard duty because he would take the Nintendo with him on guard duty, and so that type of stuff. But so Sega CD, I really would like to get another Sega CD, but I can't afford a Sega CD. They are super expensive, and a lot of times, really, the only thing you find is like the 32X, and they're wanting anywhere from a couple $100 to $300 for a 32X. So that's usually out of my price point for the nostalgia type thing. Because I would like to get Rise of the Dragon again, I think it was the name of it, where you were kind of like a detective and stuff like that, a detective back in there. Super Nintendo also. A lot of classic games that I remember Super Nintendo. So that was the era of nostalgia for me that I would like to get a hold of. I myself own only retro console that I really own is the Nintendo 64, but I don't have it hooked into anything because I don't have a really nice converter for my TV. I have a couple of mini consoles, but the games are also kind of expensive. It's hard for me to buy a $30 or $60 game from the 80s. So, Batman Forever on Super Nintendo, that was a fun game. That thing kind of goes for a lot, especially if you get like the certain versions of it. So some games make sense to me on why they were expensive, and some just don't.
Yeah, for sure. I remember playing a lot of Sega CD. I didn't have a lot of the Sega consoles, but my cousin, he lived next door to us when I was a kid, and I had all the Nintendo consoles, and he had all the Sega consoles. So I'd go over there and play Sega, or he'd come over to my place to play Nintendo stuff. So we kind of had that realm, secured in both of our environments. But I remember playing a lot of Sega CD and a lot of 32X and a lot of Sega Saturn. I love the Sega Saturn. Like I said, he had the Sega Saturn, so I'd go over there and play Shining Force or whatever game he had for that. But yeah, it's weird that those particular consoles are so expensive. You wouldn't think something like the Sega CD or the 32X would be as expensive as they are, because, I mean, and really when you think about it, it's like, why are they so expensive? Is it more the nostalgia type thing? I don't think it's really a rarity type thing, because, if you are looking for a Sega CD or a 32X, they typically aren't that hard to find. I usually, if I'm really looking for one, I could probably find one pretty easily, either online or for our area, for where we're at, there's a local game store, a mom and pop game store that has those things. But they still are expensive. So it's just kind of odd that, they are easy to find items, but they're so expensive. Russ, what's the games that you grew up with and played?
Well, being that I am a few years older than the two of you, Atari 2600, of course, was the first console I owned. I remember getting that at 6 years old. I remember the first time I flipped the score over in Asteroids, which for some of y'all should know that that's a pretty big deal back in the day. But, when you guys are getting into that era where you're talking about the 64 and the Sega Saturn and those, that's kind of a lull in my gaming period. I got my Nintendo a little bit later, and for me, the Nintendo was meaning things like Double Dribble. I mean, oh my goodness, I probably played Double Dribble like it. I'm sure I wore out my copy of that. Baseball Stars 2. It was like the first game you could create your own quote unquote character or your own baseball player, and so you'd make yourself the best baseball player ever. And getting into those games were really, that's where I was. I was playing a lot of sports in high school, and so during that time that those consoles came out, I was playing a lot of sports games. Madden was coming out, Bases Loaded 2. Those are games that, gosh, I could just remember playing hours and hours. And I think all of us would take that moment in time, too, to say, where were you? Where were you when you beat Super Mario Brothers? I mean, every one of us has a story of that. And so for me, that's what I go back to, and I talk about. I would think I was in the third grade. My friend, of course, had a Nintendo. I did not yet at the time, and I was sick, so I had to stay over. My mother was working, so I had to stay over there, and I played with both Mario and Luigi so that I could have the most maximum amount of time to try to beat. I was like, I'm going to beat this game, and sure enough, I did beat it, and I beat it with Luigi, of all things. So that was a big memory for me, and that's really where my retro gaming comes from. When it comes to, PS1, I didn't get that until I went to the military, actually, is when I finally got a PS1, and again, Madden and stuff like that. So when we talk about nostalgia games, I'm probably the most different flavor we have because I played a lot of sports games, and that's where my retro experiences come. But Shane, what about you, man?
Oh, well, since you're so much older than I am, my start was, all right, I'm older than you. My start, just like you, man, Atari 2600, Pitfall. Oh, my God. Pitfall, the heck out of that game. Stupid scorpions always got me. Jumping over holes, swinging down vines. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but we were lucky enough to get one. And then we got the Nintendo when it came out, thanks to Grandma. And, of course, Duck Hunt, Mario. God, love me some Mario. But for a sports game, Russ, I was a sports game player back then. Did you ever play caveman games? It was like the Olympics, but with cavemen. For the shot put thing, instead of a shot put, you grabbed your cave woman and you swung her around and tossed her over a T-Rex. It was hilarious. But, I played a lot of Nintendo. Nintendo was my hook. Nintendo is what really got me hooked. And then, each system come out, a new Mario. I'm a huge Mario fan. But I would love to see another game like caveman games come out because it was just so different and so freaking hilarious to play that. It was, it was just a rarity to find a game with that kind of humor at the time. But far as my old retro games, each system was kind of different. PlayStation 1, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy 8. PlayStation 2, oh God, definitely God of War, and then so forth. And Nintendo, Mario, 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 Mario. So when it comes to the old games, I stick to the classics, but there's those few rarities like caveman games I'd like to see more of.
Do you remember track and field?
Oh yes,
That
I went.
the pad, and you put it on the floor and you pound on the floor because you want to go fast like it'd be like you'd be like pound on the floor as fast as you can, raise your hands because you do the
Yep.
hurdles, and all you'd hear that.
Yeah, we had an apartment at that time, and we were close to eviction. Many a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of like sports games, I didn't play a ton of sports games, but some of the ones, I mean, me and my friends would play more of the arcadey sports games like NFL Blitz, or for the NES, Blades of Steel, which is a really good NHL hockey game.
Oh please, Konami was the bomb. They had Double Dribble and Blades of Steel.
Oh yeah, I played Double Dribble too. That was a great basketball game. So, I didn't own those personally, but I had friends that were big into those sports titles, and I would go over there and we'd play, and it was a lot of fun. And Tecmo Bowl. Oh, I love Tecmo Bowl. Me and my dad used to play that all the time.
I was waiting for somebody to mention Tecmo Bowl, but you can't forget NBA Jam either. He's on fire.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's my sports genre. I don't play a lot of sports games, but yeah, NBA Jam was about what I played in the Mutant League series. That's about as much
Mutant League
sports games as I play.
Yeah, I played a lot of Mutant League as well. That was a really fun game, football style game.
Yeah, but you guys probably like Zelda or something, right? I mean, like that was one game that I kind of missed out on really enjoying.
Of course, yeah. I mean, Zelda is a classic, and yeah, I played the crap out of Zelda. I played every single Zelda I think they've ever made. So even the knockoff ones or the side, I mean, maybe not the CDI ones. I don't think I've ever played those, but definitely the ones that on the DS and all the Nintendo consoles, those types of Zelda games. Even the Hyrule Warriors one, which is not made by Nintendo, it's I think Koei or whatever, the Dynasty Warriors group that makes that one, which they're actually making a new one. So
sequel, yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Which I didn't care for the Hyrule Warriors. I don't know, it wasn't Zelda for me.
No, those are more Destiny. Those are more Dynasty Warriors, which that type of game. If you big armies and button mashing. If you like that type of game, but it's set in Zelda and Hyrule and all that and Link. So if you like those types of games, then hey, more power to you. Those games exist. I'm not a big into those. I'll play it just because it is Zelda and it is Link and it is that whole atmosphere and environment, and I just want to play it just to be a part of it. But so this new one I'll probably end up getting, I'm sure, as well, just to try it out. But those are not particularly my type of games either. So I'm not really big into the Dynasty Warriors type games. But oh well, it is what it is. So
what about one more game? I wonder if y'all remember Faxanadu. Remember that one? Did anybody ever play that one?
Oh yes, I did.
That was in my top 5.
That's right, it was.
Yeah,
that was in my top 5. Yeah, me and my dad. That game is really nostalgic for me. One, I love that game. First off, I actually beat it recently, not too long ago. It's been a little while now, maybe like 5 months ago or so. But I beat it again. But I remember when I was a kid, that was one that me and my dad, we didn't purchase it, but we rented it from the video store, and we rented it several nights. And I remember we had the passwords written down, and then we rented it again, and me and him would just play through it, and we finally beat it. And and that was back in the day when you didn't have the internet to figure out where to go, because that game is confusing. Like as you start getting later on the levels, it's almost like the stages and stuff are almost like a maze. You can't figure out where you're supposed to go and which direction you're supposed to go. And, certain doors take certain keys, and you don't know that you need to purchase that key before you leave the town. It doesn't say anything about that. Maybe there's an NPC that says something about it, but you don't know that. And so, maybe we had Nintendo Power, but I don't know if I had that episode or that piece of Nintendo Power that had Faxanadu in it. So, yeah, we would just play. I mean, we turn that game. That game, if you play it with a strategy guide to know where to go, that game's probably like a 6-hour game, right? But I mean, for us, it was like almost a week worth of play because we just didn't know where to go, So we had our dude all powered up, and yeah, so that has a lot of nostalgia for me for that fact, and the fact that I really like that game.
Yeah, that was definitely. See, you were lucky that your dad did that stuff. My dad, he was a truck driver. He just, country boy. He didn't get all that fangled technology. He was our little league, coach and stuff like that. So it's cool that your dad was into those things with you. When my dad saw us playing, he just look at us, think, God, what a waste of money, and walk away.
Right.
But it is cool that your dad's into that. But my dad never shunned me for it because I'm the only one of my brothers that are into the games. But those classic ones from back in my youth, I would love to go back and play some more.
There is even like a couple of PC games back in the day, like the original Doom. I mean, I can remember playing the original Doom on a 386. I can't remember. Maybe it was even Doom 2 that we were playing on, and we literally stayed up for like 18 hours and played that game straight. And is it Doom 2 that's got the big monster in the end where you have to shoot him in the mouth with the rocket launcher? I cannot remember for the life of me. It's been that long, but we literally stayed on customer service line to find out how to kill that end boss. Like we were like, we can't kill him, and then they told us. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine that happening nowadays. I mean, of course, with the internet and everything like that. But like, I remember playing that and just, I mean, I think like I said, we lost a whole day to that game.
Oh yeah, I played a lot of Doom too. Doom was one of the original PC games that I had actually played. I remember I went over to a buddy's house, or it was my brother's friend's house, and they had Doom on the PC, and they went out to play football outside, and I was sitting behind the computer inside playing Doom because I'd never played it before, and man, I was infatuated with that game. But speaking of the hotline, you remember the Nintendo hotline? Remember when they used to have
wasted many a minute on there.
You could call them to figure out how to beat a certain level or whatever, or get through a certain area of any type of game. The information those people would need to have, because nothing was out at that time. So you think about all the maps and guides and stuff that everyone had. And thinking of that type of stuff too, you think of strategy guides. Man, I used to have a ton of strategy guides. And one of the things I loved about strategy guides back in the day was just looking through them, because it had a bunch of art and secrets for the game and stuff all within the strategy guides. I don't even know if they make strategy guides anymore. Maybe. Guides? Yeah, the old Prima guides. I don't even know if they make strategy guides anymore, but I mean, they may for some games, but I used to.
Yeah, I think they've all moved digital online, because I think Prima's still around, but they're the older ones that I remember, the old Prima guides back in the day.
Oh yeah, I used to go up to Walmart, walk up there, and sit there and read the guide, the entire thing, write things down, and then go home, and then try them out.
Yeah, I couldn't afford a Prima guide. They were kind of expensive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing that too. Going up there and either it was either the Prima guide or just Game Pro or EGM or Nintendo Power. You didn't have the money for it, but I remember going into Walmart with my parents and go while they were shopping, I go over to the magazine rack and pick up one of the Nintendo Powers or one of the EGMs or Game Pros or something, because I knew in that episode they had something about a game that I was playing and a strategy for it. So yeah, I would do the exact same thing. You look through it and write it down, or just kind of remember it. Like, okay, yeah, that's how you get through it, and then put it back on the shelf. Or at least I would try to buy it. Be like, can I get this? To get this magazine because it's got the strategy in it.
Yeah, I remember when the internet was going to the libraries, and man, I'd go up there. It's like, all right, it cost me 10 cents. I can go to this website, print out all these cheat codes and maps and all this crap, 10 cents a page. I did that a lot too.
Yep, it's so easy now just to look things up online while you're playing the game because you got your computer, your phone with you.
Oh, yeah.
Not that back in the day, you had to run up to Walmart or something or a local store and look through the Prima guide real quick. Like, I'm stuck.
Oh God, I hated being stuck. And but I think that's one thing that's weakened us as gamers is now information is so easily obtained. You're not working as hard for for those goals. What am I doing wrong? Oh, let me just check Google.
Well, I mean, to some extent, it's helped games. I think is you can play these. They can put out these games that are massively difficult because you're missing a single little mechanic in the game, and you can use Google as your friend to see what other people are doing. You're like, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong, or I need to try this. So, yeah, the old school video games are fun for me, but the price point and cost is prohibitive for me to get back into the nostalgia video games because if I want a retcon console that'll play all of them or just play a select few, it's expensive. And then if I want to go back and start collecting old cartridges or CDs, I'm paying, anywhere from, depending on the cartridge or CD. But if it's the nostalgia games that I like and I remember, they're not cheap. They're not the $5 loose cartridge that you're going to find at the game store. They're the $20, the $40, or the $60 cartridge that you got to buy. Because I would love to play Majora's Mask again. And stuff like that, buy a copy of it and have a copy of it and stuff like that. I would like to buy that again, but you're looking at a $40 to $60 loose cartridge game right there.
Oh yeah, we were last time we were all out there at Game World. They had Super Mario Sunshine for it's like 54 something. They had the system, the GameCube, for 59 something. It's like really. Really, I could buy an electronic device to play it on for $2 more, $4 more, whatever it is. I don't get the pricing on that, and it's a great game, and I want it badly, but I can't see myself spending, almost the same price as it was new.
Right. So that's my biggest hindrance to nostalgia is first I got to buy the console, then I either need to find myself a TV at a yard sale to play it on, or I need to buy an expensive converting box to make it look good because I want to play it on my big TV. So that's it's price right now. Is it nostalgia the video games that are for nostalgia and stuff like that? Retro gaming is expensive. It costs probably more to do that than to actually do the regular gaming that I do now. So it's a little bit prohibitive of a hobby for me. Or else I would have a copy of each console and a bunch of games for it. So I usually spend mine on new games and new things like that. So it's harder for me to justify that. Like I said, I have a Nintendo 64 sitting here, controllers in bag, everything. I plugged it into my TV and it looks like garbage. So I'm like, need a converter. So that kind of stuff just is a hindrance to me. I want to play it. So I'm stuck buying the minis or all the consoles that they put out that have a bunch of old school games with emulation running behind it. Like I have the Genesis Mini and the Nintendo Minis. And I'm just like that's not the same. I want to buy a Nintendo and put cartridges in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, me and Nick got lucky that day. We found these CRTs, and it's so much. It's just so much better to just pop them in, plug it in, play. I mean, you don't have to worry about any fancy cords, any of that crap. You just plug and play. I love it. Plus, you get the old scan lines.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to go. You got to get the old CRT. They have the converter boxes and things like that you can buy, but those things are expensive. Exactly what you said. And, even the retro consoles, again, going back to when you're talking about the Sega CD and the Sega Saturn and 32X, why are those consoles so expensive? It's not like you can't find them. We can definitely find them. That retro store Shane was talking about, we could go up there and get those things, right? They're there.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's difficult, but, why are those so expensive? Which brings me into the next point of our talk here is about games that are expensive. Ones that are expensive and not that rare, and then some that are expensive and rare, right? So for the ones that are expensive and rare, we understand why they're expensive because they're rare. But then you have those games that aren't expensive, or that are expensive, sorry, but aren't that rare. One, looking at a list of kind of some games that are easy to find but are worth quite a bit of money, is we have Outrun 2016 Coast to Coast for the Xbox, the original Xbox, can be up to $150. Why is that game worth that much? Outrun's a popular. It's an older series. I remember Outrun back in the day, and 2016 is definitely going to be a newer version of that particular game. But it's probably not that popular of a game, and it probably didn't get that great of a review score or reviews back in the day. So why is that game so popular, or why is that game so expensive? Is it hard to find? I don't know if I've ever found this particular game out in the wild. I really wasn't looking for it. So have I seen it before? It's possibly been there. But why is it $150? That part I don't understand.
Right.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot of games that are like that. I mean, I guarantee you, we all played and we all had a copy of the Nintendo 64 Clay Fighters, that game. The Sculptor's Cut version of it was just,
Yeah.
that game is worth, like a $500 to a couple of grand if you got an unsealed copy. If it's unsealed, it's like $500, and everybody had a copy of that, and you could still find it. I just don't understand how that game was one of those games that's worth so much money, because you can usually find a couple of copies running around at most used game stores, retro game stores.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rarity obviously makes a difference, but those games that really aren't that rare, I think it's just because of popularity of that game. The more people demanding it, the higher the prices are going to be. But I think some of them are just getting way out of hand, just completely bonkers.
I mean, when you walk into a game store and they have 2 or 3 copies, but each copy's $80 plus, to me it doesn't seem like it's worth the money. I just don't get that. When you walk in and I can go online and find 5 and 6 copies being sold on either eBay or any service out there, and go into my local retro game store and find 3 or 4 copies. Why it's so expensive? And those 3 or 4 copies will never move, because nobody's paying $500 for that. They're just, you may come into that one person who really has to have that and pays that $500 price tag, or even that $80 or $100 price tag. Because when we go into Game World, I'll look around and I keep my eye on a few games, and I'm pretty sure it's the same copy I go in there every time that's never moved. Like they have that 32X that's in there. I think it's the same one that's been coming in there ever since I go in there. That's just ridiculously priced, and I'm like, no. So I think that, I don't know if they actually sell it and replace it with a new one, or if they got a stock in the back, but I swear it's the same one every time I go in there.
Yeah, I 100% agree that, some of these places sell those games, online. It shows that, this is worth that much, so they sell it for that much. But yeah, no one goes in and buys it. There's been, especially in Game World, which we were talking about, there's been a lot of games I've seen up there since the first day we came in there. They're still sitting there. They'll never get sold. You're selling them for, $200-$300, and that's how much they go for. But guess what? They're going to sit on that shelf forever until you get that one person that's got the money that's going to go in there and buy that because they think they need it. But otherwise, it's just going to sit there. I mean, I don't know if they're banking on, that one person to come in there that one day to buy that one thing, or what. I mean, even though they are worth that, the whole point of a business is to sell your stock and restock. So it's really weird to see that.
Was it last year that we went to St. Louis and we went to that little flea market, and there were games there that were anywhere from $350 to $500. The Nintendo 64 games, the Super NES games, those games were just outrageous. It was I'm not saying that if I had the money, would I or wouldn't I? I mean, I probably wouldn't because though they are wonderfully nostalgic, I still have an issue paying what back in the day was a $29.99 game, spending, $299.
Yeah, Mo Game Con.
Oh yeah.
We went to Mo Game. That was Mo Game Con that we went to. But yeah, it is hard. I mean, I've looked to buy. For me, one of the games it's nostalgia. It has no value. It has no intrinsic value for me besides nostalgia, and it's a game that I wanted when I was a kid for Sega called General Chaos. I remember asking my grandma for that game forever because I saw like an ad in one of the game magazines for it, and I just had to have it. Had to have it. We went to all these little game stores. It wasn't very popular. Nobody ever seemed to have it. And I remember my grandma going and finding some. I don't even know where she bought it from. We lived off a military base, and she found some online, not online, but like call-in retailer that she called in and gave her credit card number to, and it took like 3 or 4 weeks to ship. And I felt so bad that I thought she wasted her money. And to me, it's just that whole process of her trying to find me this video game, General Chaos, and so to me, it has no value except for like that. And I think you can usually find it used for about $10 to $20, but I want to get a copy of it just for that. But every time I go to find it at like these GameCon convention, because it wasn't a very widely popular game, they have them for $40-50. When we were at Mo Game Con, I saw loose copies for like $30, $40, and I'm like, no, it's like $10-20 game at best. Because I can find online auctions for that, but I want to pick up a copy that's that I put my hands on first to see it, So it's that type of thing. I think if you go into a place that's their business, they're going to try to get top dollar out of it just because they say, hey, that person's in this store to buy this, so we're going to get something out of it. Like going to Mo Game Con, everybody knew what the cost of the thing was because that's what everybody was there for, so they just jacked it up a little bit more because I noticed that's how a lot of them were. They were right at what top price was for most of those games.
I agree. That's definitely what they were doing. And is that price based on nostalgia or, is that price based on rarity? For some games it is based on rarity. For some games, I think it's more based on nostalgia. Some of the other games that, are pretty common, but are worth quite a bit. I'm just going to go through a few here. Futurama on the original Xbox, can be up to $150.
For what? That game wasn't popular or any of that stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think they probably printed that many of that game because, Futurama was a niche series, a niche show. It was popular with people like us, but it was not a mass show. But it was popular just enough to probably slap a few crappy games out. So I could kind of see why, but not that much. Definitely no.
Yeah, and for that game, the PS2 version is even more. It can sell up to $260 pop for the PS2 version. So,
well,
again,
oh Lord,
that's some strange stuff. I mean, I have seen strange stuff like that. I mean, if you look at current trends, I mean, some things make sense. Like, you guys remember the Steel Battalion game from Capcom?
Oh yes.
I think that thing, if you can find it as a complete unit, usually goes for about $600+ normally, but that comes with that was the battle, the whole thing. It came with the foot pedals and the joysticks and the controllers, all that. So I can see why that's $600. But then when you look at, one of the things that always surprises me is it's a very popular game that people still play today, Fortnite. You can get physical unopened copies of that game sell for over $1,000. Because they don't sell physical copies of that game anymore. So the 2017 physical copy of Fortnite, you can get $1,000 for it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've seen auctions for it, and I'm like, no, it's a current game. Why would I give you $1,000 for a physical copy of a game? I don't know if there was just that low of a sell of that physical PlayStation copy, from 2017, but I cannot see that something that new being worth $1,000.
Oh yeah. Well, I just looked for your Steel Battalion controller, and on eBay, $2,000. $2,000. Wow. My God.
I know they only released the number was extremely limited on that Steel Battalion. So
I remember a buddy of mine was going to get the foot pedal and controls and stuff, and he was all.
I had it. It was only $250.
Was it you? Maybe it was you. I was thinking it was my buddy Nathan, but it may have been you that was getting it. I can't remember, but I remember that someone was going to get it, regardless. And they ended up not getting it in the end. They ended up just getting, I think, just the game itself, which Steel Battalion wasn't really that great of a game anyway.
No, but the collector's favorite was, because of the But yeah, if you can get that, supposedly it's worth a lot of money, but.
Right. Yeah, and they even show the World of Warcraft Collector's Edition.
I got one of those on my shelf.
For PC from 2004 can be up to $4,300.
Yeah, I think that's new in box and still sealed.
It seems to be like the limited edition version.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, I have the collector's edition. The one that looks like a giant book. I have that. Yeah. Three of them, but they're all open. Yeah. They're all used. The 4,000 price tag on those are usually unopened with codes intact. But
right.
I have those sitting on my shelf because I bought those when they came out. I'm like, I gotta have the collector's edition.
Just to be safe, which shelf?
Well, I mean, some of those actually, those unboxed ones, even if everything is intact, original CDs, the whole 9 yards, those World of Warcraft collector editions can go up to as much as $700, depending on that. But another one I was thinking about too, Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, sealed copies of those are going for about $500. That would be great to have, but at the same time, like, there's so many emulators out there and stuff like that are just about as good as the originals that I just, golly, $500 just for a sealed copy is just crazy to me.
Yeah, but an emulator is, it's like a kit car. It's not the real deal. It's not the thing you fell in love with, 30 years ago.
Yeah, you don't get to blow into the cartridge and smack it around to shove it in to see if it works.
Exactly. Unless it's a Ford.
Yeah, you degrade the contacts from spit all over time, so they just get worse as time goes on. You're not doing anything to help it, but it seems to work if you blow on it like 3 times and smack the left side twice. Stick it in, it works.
Right.
But that's the whole thing, is getting physical copies, I guess, is what it boils down to, is the collection. And I would agree. I would love to have a wall of retro consoles and retro games, but I don't have that kind of money.
Right. And most of those people that buy those boxed in sealed copies aren't going to open them, right?
No.
They'll go out, they'll buy a boxed in sealed copy of a game, and they'll keep it boxed and sealed and everything like that. And then they'll, if they really want to play the game, they'll either emulate it, like Russ said, or they'll go out and buy just loose cart, of the game, just some crappy version of it somewhere that's, the label's half ripped off, and they don't really care. They just want to play it, right? In some games, this don't make sense to me, like Haunting Ground, sorry, from Capcom. It was on PlayStation 2. That game can be sold for up to $300. Now, that Game World that we talk about, they have a copy of this game. This game is not hard to find. I've found it several times. Not just at Game World. I've seen it in numerous places. But they all want the same price for it. And it's like, but why? Because if you look at the reviews for that game, it didn't do very good. It got mediocre scores. So, again, it's one of those titles that, like, maybe it was just not, maybe they didn't make a lot of copies of it. And that may be the reason why it's priced more, because there just wasn't that many copies produced. So that makes it rare, but it's not like I haven't found it. And there's another one, I think, I can't remember if it's Capcom or someone else, but called Ruler Rose. And again, that Game World has the copy of it. And they're selling it for, I think the last time I looked at it was like $300 or $400. And it's not like it's hard to find. It's just expensive to buy. So.
Right, yeah. That kind of reminds me of, like, one of the games I liked was Harvest Moon. When it came out on was it Super Nintendo? That game's always expensive. Every time I find it, I would like, oh, that'd be a great Super Nintendo game, no. But it's always ridiculously expensive, and it's I guess it's not as common. I don't know if it was. I think it was a game that came out kind of, I think, at the changeover when Super Nintendo was on the way out and we already had the new one. I can't remember the whole thing behind it, but every time I go to look for it, I'm like, why is this so expensive? And I Google it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that I think that was probably what it is. Every time it was one of those games that came out at the brand new release of a new console, but it was on the old console. But I liked it. That was a fun game, and I would like to own a copy. But I just am not going to spend that much money on it.
Right. And going back to Russ, remember the Atari 2600 Air Raid? Air Raid with the T-shaped handle, the blue cartridge, can go for $14,000 to $33,000.
That's a hell of a price difference.
Right. Well, was it
is.
Atari? Didn't Atari the one that threw out that had the giant cartridge graveyard of unreleased games?
For ET.
Yeah. And I guess people have said that that's not the first time that they've done that. They just buried cartridges. So if you get a copy of one of these buried games, they're worth a lot of money.
You're stealing my thunder for maybe a future episode with the ET business. But yeah, definitely. There's actually one of the biggest things with that was that there was literally mounds of, because so many people hated ET so badly, there were mounds of that game in the trash heap. There was a news story back in the day about it. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, we got it, and it was utter garbage. I mean, we went and watched it to drive-in. We were all happy. Oh my God, ET is so amazing. I want the game. We got the game. This game sucks. Yeah, it was really bad. You couldn't tell the difference between ET's head and the Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, I've seen game footage of that game. I don't think I ever played it on the Atari back in the day, but yeah, it didn't make any sense. Like you're collecting, I think collecting pieces of the phone.
Yep. You're collecting. Yeah, you're collecting the different pieces of umbrella and the telephone and the I can't think of that one piece. And you go through the forest level. Speak and spell, yeah. So you go through the forest level, which is like 3 trees on a screen that you can't tell what the hell they are. Then you go to the next level, which is like a street. You can't tell between the trees and the houses because they look the same. It was just so bad.
And on certain levels, they were missing certain pieces, so you could never get through the level. Like you'd have to restart the game, and you didn't have to restart the game from the level. You had to restart the game
entirely. Yep, that's right. Yeah, that is the definition of crap. Really, just awful.
Right. So that's hard to it's hard to I guess it's hard to put a price on nostalgia because to some people a game's worth it, to some it's not. I can understand the rarity of a game factoring into its price, but I mean for the most part, we all had a lot of these games. I look at some of these games when I go into like Game World and I'm like, man, I had a copy of that. I could have had $30, or I could have had 50 or 60 or 80, or eBayed this thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. You go in there now and look at things like what was the Xbox game that had the blue gun? What was that? Was that Time?
Oh, Enforcers.
Yeah, Enforcers. And you go in there and look, and that thing's like anywhere from $50 to $150, depending on the quality of it. And I'm just like, man, I remember having that game and trading all that crap in for another game.
Yeah.
How much of this stuff did we throw away or get rid of?
Oh yeah, just imagine if you were to have kept every game. You look on your shelf right now, how many thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars you would have in value sitting there. Now, granted, what you could sell it for, you may not quite get that much, but people that are buying it though, ooh, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of nostalgic games and. Yeah, especially that. There's a lot of games that I know I own. Especially what you said, Patrick, when you go into that game world and you see those games sitting on the shelf for like $50, $60, $100, $200, you're like, I own that. I used to, anyway. I remember buying it at, Toys R Us when you used to grab the slips out of the little packs and take it back to the back counter where they get the game for you. Or EB Games or Software, etc., or Babbage's, all those companies that are not around anymore.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy to think about how much money that we have had. I mean, basically, considering from the Atari, I've had pretty much every console, at least one copy of it in my life. Everything from the Neo Geo all the way up. I mean, I had Sega Saturn, Sega CDs, all the Segas. I had all that stuff. I had the Nintendos and even some of the, all the different consoles I've had over the years, and I think, man, if I would have just kept those, how much they'd be worth now? Because now I want to buy a Sega CD, and I'm looking at $150 to $300 depending on if I can get what version of it I can get. Whether I get the version with the tray or the version without the tray for holding the Sega and stuff like that. It's just insane to think about that now. If I would just held on to a copy of it, but it's like everything else in life. We get on the topic of like old toys, and I remember having lots of old Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. That you look online now and you're like, that thing is worth how much?
Oh yeah.
I used to throw that thing out in the yard and light firecrackers on it, or throw it in the pool or something, and or just all of them I still had that were in really good condition. That at some point in my life, my grandma or my mom got tired of stepping on them or stepping over them and threw them away or did whatever they did with them.
Yeah, that's I gave my son some old Transformers that we found when we moved into this house, and it's like, oh my God, I remember this. So I spent 4 hours showing him how to play with it.
For him not to play
probably
with.
worth $500 a piece.
Right.
Or something. You're like, wait a minute, don't play with that. Don't transform it.
Oh, it's still mint in the box. Don't take it out of the box. But yeah, that seems to be a lot of it too. If you can find unopened copies, which I don't know who in their right mind back in the day was buying copies of this stuff and never opening it, because I didn't have that willpower as a kid. You imagine being handed Super Mario 64 and told not to open it?
Oh God,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, a
all the
lot of
Star
those
Wars
people,
toys, people that don't open, that's ridiculous.
right? And the people that don't open them are, adults of our age around that time, right? And they're like, this is going to be worth something one day. But when you're a kid, when we grew up in the 80s and 90s, that was a general time of our growing up portion. Even for you old folks, that was still a general time for your growing up. We opened those things. Yeah, I remember getting, for Christmas, sealed copies of Super Nintendo games because that was the console that was out at the time, right? And getting Final Fantasy 3, and remember opening the box. For me, I wasn't one to take out the stuff. I would keep the cardboard insert and keep what was that? The registration card that was in there. I would keep that stuff in there because I wanted it to be complete, but I didn't think about like it possibly being worth something when I grew older. It was something that I wanted to be intact.
Yeah, it was worth $39.99 to a 10-year-old kid. That's what it was worth.
Well, that's going to lead into kind of like how the future is going to look. How physical copies of things are more and more rare.
Yes.
We've talked about it, a lot on our podcast here, but I don't buy physical copies of anything anymore. I go for the more of the convenience anymore. I just buy games online. I wait for them to go on sale because, a perfect example is a game that's $60 when it comes out. It will always be $60. They may put it on sale down to $40 or $50 at like GameStop or something, but as long as it's an unopened new copy, it's always going to be like $40 or $50. But I can get it on sale on Xbox or on sale for a Steam sale or something like that, or PlayStation, the PS Store for $20. But I'll never be able to buy a brand new copy of that game for $20 unless that thing's collecting dust and they sold you the store to clean it out.
Oh yeah.
You're never going to get a copy of stuff like that. So it's going to. I think it's going to get more and more rare. As I would like to know what the market share is of digital versus physical copies of game anymore. I mean, PlayStation's about the only thing I buy physical copies of anymore, and I don't keep them. I play the games, I beat them, and then I take them back to GameStop and trade them in for something else.
Yep. Oh yeah. But I try not to do that myself anymore because of the fact that physical is becoming a rarity. I mean, Xbox, I can't remember the last time I bought a physical copy of an Xbox game. PlayStation, the exclusives I will buy on disc every time because I don't play my PlayStation as much. I don't get the, game share like I do with Xbox. So, I'm going to trade it in and get something else. But I'm trying not to do that anymore because it is becoming so rare to have a physical copy of a great game.
And you'll have to hold on to those older like PlayStations. I mean, I know PlayStation's talking about doing backwards compatible for their next gen console, but I think it's only PS5 and
PS4.
PS4. So, it makes it a little bit harder. But with like Xbox, you can, their digital backwards compatibility library stuff is kind of a cool concept. But it goes back to the thing of it's digital, it's not physical. So I think the physical copies of stuff is just going to they're going to start being worth more and more money because people like me who don't buy physical copies of stuff, which, when I talk to myself and I say this out loud, my brain goes, "You idiot, you should buy those physical copies now because it's going to be worth some money." But my primitive modern man of creature comfort says I'll just buy that through the digital store. I don't feel like going to GameStop.
Yeah, and because of that backwards compatibility Xbox has, I only have like a handful of physical Xbox games, Xbox One games, I should say. But as far as like PS4 games, I probably have over 50 physical copies of PS4 games. I have a whole shelf full of PS4 physical copies, and some that I haven't even opened. Not because I want to keep them for nostalgia's sake or for possibly price in the future, but just haven't had time to play them. They go on sale or whatever, and I'll just pick them up for a cheap price and stick them on the shelf. And I think that also lays into another part for me and for Shane especially is that backwards compatibility part too that Xbox has. We've gone out, and since PlayStation really doesn't have that, they have PlayStation Now, but PlayStation Now is not really that great of a service. So for us, we went out and bought PS3s and PS2s to play those. PS2 can play PS1 games, so we don't need to buy a PS1. And so we use those particular consoles to play those games that we're nostalgic for the PS3 and for PS2. But for Xbox, since they do have that backwards compatibility, it's like, well, I don't really need to go out and collect for Xbox games or Xbox 360 games or buy an Xbox or Xbox 360 console because of that backwards compatibility. Now, one thing I wouldn't mind buying is original Xbox, because even though they do have that backwards compatibility, they not every single game on the original Xbox is backwards compatible. So being able to go out and play the original Xbox games, there's a lot more 360 games that are backwards compatible on the One than there are original Xbox. And I think it's probably going to stay that way even in the future with the Series X, where a lot of probably, well, all the Xbox One games are going to play on the X. But I think that, as far as the backwards compatibility team, they're probably going to add a lot more 360 games versus original Xbox. And you might get a handful here and there throughout the year, but you're not going to see a ton of those come in as backwards compatibility, I don't think.
Well, I just want to know, I have my hands full with current gen games. When do you have time to? I can understand buying things for nostalgia and having a copy of it because it reminds you of something or because you just want to be a collector. But to play stuff that's old, I don't enjoy that for the most part. Just because I will admit I'm a graphics snob, and when I look at like a Nintendo 64 game or something like that, I need to go run my eye to the eye wash station because I'm like, my eyes hurt looking at that. So, and part of it is like I'm so full up with current gen games, I don't have time to play these old school games. So I don't understand where all the time is that you guys get to just go back and play. Like you just said, you beat the Faxanadu game again. I'm like, where'd you get that time at? Because I'd like some of it.
Yeah, that's a big problem with it is, I've got, I'm working on Metal Gear Solid 1 again. And, I play 10, 15 minutes at a time. If I'm lucky, I get to do it 2-3 times a week if I'm lucky, but I haven't been able to do that in 2 months.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I get off work and it's everything I could do to get a couple hours to focus on the game I recently played was Wasteland, or when I was playing Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I pumped like 2 to 4 hours of that game in a night, for 2 weeks to beat it, and then I turn around, I'm like, Nick's over here playing Faxanadu and beating it, and then talking about playing all these other retro games. I'm like, man. You beat these games, and you still have time for other games.
Well, he doesn't really work, I don't think. I think he's pretending.
I think Nick sleeps like 1 hour a day. He's found like that magic pill that we're all looking for.
Oh, yeah.
If I didn't have to sleep, oh my God, it would be retro game heaven. Because then I could just be like, okay, I'm going to play a couple hours of my current game, and then I'm going to pull some of the stuff out of the old trunk, and see what we got hiding back there, I think that's what Nick just never sleeps.
I sleep some, but the main thing for me is, unlike you guys, I don't watch a lot of TV, right? I don't watch a lot of TV, and I don't watch a lot of movies. So that's not it for me, right? I mean, I can sit there and watch a movie or watch TV, and that's fine, but I'd rather be playing a video game. So for me, I do have that time, right? So if for you guys that do watch a lot of movies and watch a lot of TV and also play video games, my time is spent playing video games 24/7, right? I'm not watching. My TV hardly comes on for TV or movies. I just don't have any interest in them. There are some movies that I like to see, but a perfect example is I know it wasn't that, from what I've heard, it's not that great, but the last Star Wars, the Last Jedi, I think it was, the last Star Wars that came out, or Rise of Skywalker. That's what it was. I'm sorry.
That just explains it all right there. He didn't even need to say another word.
Yeah.
We all know he didn't see it.
I didn't see the the Rise of Skywalker. I watched the Last Jedi, but I didn't see the Rise of Skywalker, and I still haven't seen it.
I guess
Do I
that makes
want
a
to
lot of
watch
sense.
it? Yes, I do. But it's really when I'm with
You have nothing to play.
when I'm with my girlfriend, really. I mean, that's it. When I'm with her, she wants to watch. She's not a big gamer, so she wants to watch a movie, and so we'll watch a movie. And that's pretty much it. That's the time that I watch a movie. Other than that,
I guess that makes sense because at nighttime, like I say, I get off work, make some dinner, come down here and start playing around 6, and I'll play till, depending on how I feel, I'll play from 6 to 9 or 6 to 10 if I'm really interested in something. But usually I'll play a couple hours and I'll go hang out and watch anime or some movie or some show or something. I guess I do that, but that's like an hour or two out of my day. So I guess outside of work is like 5 hours a day that I put into gaming or some type of media interest, and then the weekends are my time where I veg out on something like a video game. But yeah, even that, I mean, even if I were to cut out my wind down of watching an anime episode or two or a show episode or two at night before bed, that's still only an extra hour a day. I still don't know if I can get in some retro gaming time. So I really do think Nick just never sleeps.
It's all right.
the other game I've been playing through, besides the ones that we've been reviewing and playing and stuff, is Dragon Quest 8 on PS2. I never played through that game as a kid, and I've always heard good things. So, I'm about probably halfway through it, maybe a third of the way through. So
yeah, I mean, if we're playing a game to review, I spend a lot of my time trying to play that one just so I can give a good honest opinion of it. Outside of that, I try to get in something that it's for personal pleasure, but it's a little hard sometimes. So that's why I don't play a whole lot of retro. So price is usually an issue for me for retro gaming, because I don't want to. If I want to play an emulator, fine, whatever. I'll load up an emulator and play that. But I would prefer to have that controller in my hand. I mentioned it before, like the best thing that I think the Nintendo currently has is their retro service, and you can buy the old school controllers that are exact size and all that stuff to play with, and that's what I want to do. So for me, retro gaming is a nostalgia thing. So I want the controller, I don't want the emulator, because I'm not playing those games for the wow, this game's amazing, it blows my mind, because if we're all being honest, that's not true. You can pick up a game nowadays that you can fit that game inside of it probably 100 times. So I pick up a game, and if it's a nostalgia game, it's just for a little nostalgia. It's not to play through it again to remember the story or something like that for me. Because if that's what I want, if I want story immersion, I'm playing like Ghost or something like that that's more modern. But I really only play through those games once. So the nostalgia thing for me is not as big as it is for like Nick. I do enjoy the nostalgia of the old school games and the retro games, but I just don't have the time or the money to invest in that stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I love old stuff, and I like to squeeze my 10, 15 minutes when I can. But yeah, it's just there's just enough time in a day to do all the things I want to do and need to do.
if you could only stop time or turn back time,
Oh, thank God!
All right,
I
who's
thought you
gonna
were
sing? Who's gonna sing? I was waiting for somebody to start singing. I mean, honestly, I joke about it all the time, but if they made some pill to where I could take it that was not like a drug or something, but something to where I could only sleep that I could sleep for like an hour or two, and it would basically tell my body that I've slept for 8 hours without any negative side effects or anything like that. I would do it in a heartbeat because I can imagine staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning playing something and laying down at 4 and waking up at 6 and feel like I'd got like 8 or 10 hours of sleep, just feel completely refreshed. Uh, you know, I would definitely be on board for that. What was that movie Limitless or whatever, where you had yeah. If I could have something like that, or Family Guy, where they took the pills where they didn't have to sleep.
Yeah, but
You
that
know?
was there was a pill. It was called being 20. When I was 20, I could do that.
But I still
Yeah.
sucked. If you stayed up all night and slept for 2 hours and got up and go to work, you still suffered a little bit. But it was what I mean is that I want something that will tell my body that I slept for 8 hours and it got the benefit of 8 hours sleep in an hour or two, like Family Guy, where they didn't have to sleep anymore, and Francine went and got American Dad. Excuse me, not Family Guy. It was American Dad, where Francine and Stan's had got these pills from the CIA, to where he'd have to sleep and he could do all these hobbies, and he's playing like, what was it, Beat
Oh,
Bud or
yes.
something like that? Where he's
Something
playing
like that, yeah.
where he's playing a beat, and she went off and got this degree in archaeology or whatever. Imagine how much more productive we'd all be. So I would have plenty of time for retro gaming, and I'd probably do a lot more gaming because I'd run out of things to play. But
yeah.
as time stands right now, I'm usually in bed around 11 to midnight, so I don't have that much time. So I try not to. I can't do 15 minutes of a game and be satisfied because I get sucked in, and then next thing I know it's 2 or 3 hours later, and I'm like, crap, I should have been in bed 3 hours ago, and I gotta get up and go to work. So that's what I need. I need something like that to where I don't have to sleep, and then I could get more retro gaming in, and then it may be a bigger hobby for me than it is now. But retro gaming is it's a bottom tier gaming for me because I have Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, PC, and then I have my retro gaming, and it's pretty much in that order for me.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
have to agree with that.
I mean, I definitely play more modern day games, but I like to get my retro gaming in, and I just it's not necessarily just the nostalgia part of it. It's a lot of these games, some of these games are games that I haven't played before, and I really wanted to play even back in the day, and I finally get a time to play them now, or they are retro, they are nostalgic games that I loved as a kid, and I want to play them again, and just kind of experiencing them again as an adult, because I feel like I get more out of them that way than I did as a kid, because maybe I didn't understand it, or understand the story, or understand what was going on. So,
Yeah, it's definitely different when you go back and you play that game. Like, man, I love this as a kid, and you try it again. It's like, wow, this was not good. Or what was it? DuckTales. Wow, this was so much harder than I remember.
Right. Yeah, that's part of it too. Is you there's an old adage about don't go back to your childhood nostalgia because it ruins it for you. Some of the
Yep.
games, a lot of things just don't hold up. I remember I have great fondness of playing games that I will never play again because I don't want to be like, yeah, that game sucks. Because today's standards, it will. It is hard to live up to what we have to today. I mean, I loved Star Fox, but I guarantee if I played it again, I'd look at that thing and go, "This is a polygonic piece of, compared to what I am today." So I try not to play stuff like that. If I'm playing nostalgia games, a lot of times it's something that I don't really remember a whole lot about. I remember it being fun, or maybe I just never got around to playing it and I want to play it again, or I want to play it for the first time. That's how I will. That's how I look at the nostalgia games. I don't want to play what I've already played because I don't want to ruin my memory of it. I want to have that as a memory memento, if you will. But the things that I will play that's retro are things I never got around to playing when I was younger.
yeah, I agree. And so, before we move on, does anybody else have anything retro-wise that they want to talk about, or anything else that we may have missed?
Well, I don't know. Think of one game that you wish from your retro days that you would love to see a rehash, a remake, not a slap on another coat of paint, but a really nice redo of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, it would be Faxanadu. I would love to see that game remade. redone. You know, there's a lot of games that there is a lot of games that I'd like to see redone and remade, but that's definitely one because I am very nostalgic for it, and I had enjoyed it as a kid. So I'd like to see what they would do with that game, or even Chakan, the Forever Man, which was on the Genesis, which is a game that's really hard, and I don't think a lot of people really liked it, but I liked it, and I like to see that game remade. And they were going to remake that game actually for the Dreamcast. I remember back in the day they had EGM or GamePro or one of those actually had screenshots of them remaking that game for the Dreamcast, but it never came to be. So that sucks. But I would love to see one of those two games be remade.
What about you, Russ?
Geez, I mean, this kind of for you guys. I mean, retro gaming is kind of that's kind of y'all's shtick. I mean, I'm kind of like Patrick in the sense of like, you know, once I played a game, I'm pretty much good. I mean, yeah, did I play Double Dribble back? Did I play those games? Yeah, that's really great. They were a lot of fun, but I am a graphic snob as well. I mean, thinking about a game that I really enjoyed previously that I would love to see again. Man, I tell you what, probably something like, I mean, everything's pretty much been updated. I mean, Mortal Kombat has been updated, great. There was a couple old games on the 3DO that I would love to see upgraded. And well, okay, so it would have really been nice to see them continue the original Gran Turismo set. It kind of changed as it progressed, and it's not what it used to be. That original Gran Turismo on, what is it, PS3? That was probably one of my favorite racing games. But even before that, maybe a new coat of paint on a new Silent Hill. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I know that they had one not too old, but like something that's kind of like in the mold of the original Silent Hill. I mean, I don't think I slept for 3 weeks playing that after playing that game. So maybe that's something that would be really neat. Something that's really immersive. What was it? Hellblade most recently. That was actually something in that kind of genre of like, man, I'm stressed playing this game the whole time. But maybe something like that. Maybe something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would
I
definitely
would
like to
love
see
to
some Silent Hill.
Yeah, me too.
All right, what about you, Pat?
Well, mine's going to be a little tough. I'm really torn between two games that I would like to see being remade into something more modern. I don't want a coat of paint. I would like to. So one of them is like I've already mentioned. It's kind of one of my favorites from the Sega CD game. It's Rise of the Dragon. I remember playing that game back in the day in the 90s. You know, on Sega CD. It was very very gritty, cyberpunkish. You kind of played a detective tracking down like some drug dealers and stuff, and it had really cool scenes and interactions and stuff. And I remember it was like the first time I played it was like, wow, I can do this. I remember going in the bathroom of a murder scene as you're a detective, and you walk into there and there's some of the drug that's on the sink, and one of the options is you can take the drug and it kills you. You know, I was just like, what? You know, playing this game, and it has all these puzzles and interact. So that was a really fun game for me. Rise of the Dragon. It was I can't even remember who put it together, but it was like an action adventure graphic games. But like I said, cyberpunkish. I would also love to see Super Metroid redone. I love that game, and I would like to see that one modernized. I'm talking like a real RPG, like third-person view RPG of Super Metroid. That would be kind of cool and interesting to me.
Yeah, I think they could do something really awesome with the right developer now. With all this technology, that would be pretty cool.
Right? Yeah. So, something like that. Like the storyboard games they've done, like Rise of the Dragon, they've done, but they've not done Rise of the Dragon. So I would like to see that one. But I would probably lean more towards Super Metroid as a action adventure RPG game I'd like to see be remade.
All right,
Yeah, for
Nintendo,
sure.
listen.
Well,
For me, I would probably go
Legend of the Dragoon.
Legend of Dragoon is definitely one I would love to see redone, given all the bells, whistles, and love that the Final Fantasies have gotten. Legend of Dragoon is one of the best RPGs on PlayStation. Period. There's not much that could really beat that in my book. I think it was better than Final Fantasy VII. Not as good as 8, but I'm a snob for 8. But also, I'd like to see D2 for Dreamcast redone, or remade or something like that with updated visuals. If you never played it, it's a survival horror game in the realm of Parasite Eve, not really Resident Evil, but that would be fantastic. And just as a complete goof, I would love to see a new version of Sewer Shark. Race around the tubes, and then you get the cool FMVCs at the end. That would be awesome right now.
You should bring back the cringe-worthy FMVs from the old days.
Oh, man,
Phantasmagoria and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. What's that haunted house one where the girls are all camping out and you're murdering them all? Night Trap?
Yeah, Night Trap or Phantasma. Yeah, all those, or Sewer Shark, like you said. All those types of games that had the crappy FMV videos that were just hilarious.
Hey, man, they were top notch in the day.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even Command and Conquer had those, back then. A lot of, yeah, those are some great games. I would love to see a new Parasite Eve. They don't necessarily need to remake the original, but I would love to see a new Parasite Eve that's like the original games. That's a franchise that Square Enix definitely needs to bring back.
And not no PSP crap. We wanted a real game.
Yes, exactly. A real game, not a PSP game. I played that one. It wasn't Parasite Eve. It was some shooter game that had the characters in it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather see, an actual remake or just a Parasite Eve 4 that just follows the same, because that game had action and RPG elements.
Oh, yes.
So that would be a cool. It was a cool story, and it had cool characters, and yeah, I love Parasite Eve or Dino Crisis. Another Dino Crisis would be awesome. Not the one that came out on the Xbox, but not Dino Crisis 3, but Dino Crisis 1 or 2. Just kind of remake that. Kind of like what they did with Resident Evil. Why couldn't they make Dino Crisis 1 or 2 and give it the Resident Evil treatment? The Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 3 treatment. That would be awesome to see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember when they were advertising 3 for the Xbox. I'm like, that doesn't look like my Dino Crisis.
It was Jason X. It was the Jason X of Dino Crisis.
It was cyborg dinosaur.
It was Jason in space, is what it was. Because they had space dinos and stuff, and I was like, come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
You go back to the original. The original was good. The 1 and 2 were really good. I have 1 on PS1, but yeah, they need to make something like that. So hopefully Square Enix will go that way. I mean, they did with Resident Evil, and Resident Evil did really well. So I mean, I'm hoping that will make the Square Enix look at their older catalog and say, hey, what are these other older games that we could redo like this? Because Resident Evil 2 especially, poured in a ton of money for them. I mean, that was really popular and everyone liked it. Resident Evil 3, everyone liked 2, but not as much as 2. And come on, Square
Code
Enix.
Veronica.
Or Code Veronica, yeah, that'd be awesome too. To see another Code Veronica come out. That was probably the best Resident Evil game. It's probably the best Resident Evil game to this date. Besides 7.
I don't know.
And 2. And 1. And 4. Not 5. 5 was good co-op though.
Yeah, 5 was good co-op.
We did have a lot of fun playing co-op. 6 is horrible.
6 we'll leave in the ashtray.
0 was okay. 0 was okay.
Yeah, 0 was fine.
Yeah.
All
right. So I think we pretty much covered the retro game stuff. Patrick, you were kind of coming in there. Did you have anything else to add?
Nope, not on the retro gaming stuff.
Okay. So I think it's time to introduce Shane Grandpa's review or release. My goodness.
Edit.
Yeah, we're going into the second helping with Shane.
Yes.
Second helping. He's going to talk about what's currently coming out on what's currently out, or what is right around the corner coming out for games.
All right, is that the actual introduction?
Yes, Shane's second
Okay.
second helping with Shane.
All right. This week we have Inertial Drift, Bacon Switch. I bet you can't guess which system that one's for. Other side, Borderlands 3, Psycho King. DLC there. We got Hot Shots Racing, Company of Heroes for the phone, which everybody should avoid. Bounty Battle Xbox. The Outer Worlds, Peril on Gorgon. Some DLC there. Party Hard 2. I never heard of Party Hard 1. Sims 4. Necromunda, Underhive Wars. Don't have a clue. Really don't. RPG Maker MV. Kingdoms of Amular, The Re-Reckoning, which I'm excited to play that one. And that is it for the week.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, it's a little bit of a lull, but I mean, we're getting into.
Yeah.
I mean, Kingdoms of Amular. It's going to be a good one.
Yep.
What was the first one that you had mentioned? I had not even heard of that one.
The first one I mentioned was Inertial Drift. It's for a racing game.
Oh, huh.
Switch, Xbox, PS4, PC.
Inertial Drift, huh? Interesting.
Yep.
And then that Sims 4, that Star Wars
like a
Journey to
Wipeout
Batu. Yeah. Yeah, that Sims 4 that came out was that Star Wars Journey to Batu.
Oh, Lord.
Interesting for Sims. Huh. Yeah, kind of a lull. I mean, the Outer Worlds, Peril on Gorgon. Outer Worlds is a good game. I heard that that one wasn't doing so hot. Didn't get as good a review as the original Outer Worlds, but it's DLC, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I mean, you did see that they moved up the date for Assassin's Creed Valhalla to match the console launches. So there's going to be some changes, I think, from now to the end of the year on game releases.
Right.
But I mean, it's pretty narrow till we start getting some new consoles dropped in.
Yep, I think everybody's gonna have to play The Sims 4, Star Wars Journey to Batu.
Oh no!
Or I'll
When
go
does
back
Cyberpunk come out?
the 19th of November.
Yep.
Okay, so that's after the Xbox releases then.
That'll be my first. That will probably honestly be my first next-gen console game. Well, cool. I think, not a whole lot of games coming out, so not a whole lot to talk about on that front. Nothing big or anything like that, that's coming out this week. So, I guess I don't have anything else to discuss for this topic or these currently out games. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? All right. Well, we enjoy you guys listening to our episode, and we will catch you on the next episode.